Mr. Ware here, and today we're talking about energy and what we can do with that energy. Energy has the ability to create change or cause motion. If that's what makes energy so useful. So let's start with something very simple like light energy. Think about the energy from the sun. What are some things that it can do? Well, first of all, it can make heat. We're going to get to that in a few minutes in talking about thermal energy. But one change light can cause is a sunburn. If you're outside in the sun too long, your skin could be damaged by the UVA and the UVB rays causing a sunburn. That's one change. Now let's go to the thermal energy, heat. Heat can do lots of things. It can cause lots of changes, some physical and some chemical. One physical change is phase change. Heat can make water or ice cubes melt, water boil and evaporate, and same thing if you take thermal energy away. For example, if you make water vapor cold, it condenses and turns into a liquid, and if you continue to take thermal energy away, it'll turn back into solid water or an ice cube. Other chemical changes that heating can cause are things like burning. If you start a campfire, that wood is forever changed into new materials, or it can even cook food. Like if you take an egg and you put it on the frying pan and you cook it, you chemically change that egg. Electrical energy is the most useful. It can cause all kinds of changes and create all kinds of motion. Think of an electric car or a toy car. You put a battery inside, you press a button, and the car goes. This is because the electricity stored inside of the battery is released and it causes motion. We'll learn more about exactly how that works later on, but if you think about it, your fan in your house might be powered by electricity, your TV, your computer, they're all powered by electricity. Electricity can make light, it can make heat, it can make motion. Electricity can do a lot of things. The next thing we're going to talk about is mechanical energy. That's the energy of motion. Anything that's moving has mechanical energy. Now here's what's pretty interesting. You can divide mechanical energy into two separate phases. You can have what's called kinetic energy, which is the energy of when an object is actually moving, or you can have potential energy. Now you've heard this word potential before. Your teacher or your parents might say, you have a lot of potential. What that means is you could do something, but you haven't yet. So potential energy is when something could move, but it hasn't yet. Now you can increase an object's potential energy by doing two things. You can change its position. So think of a bowling ball on the ground. Can't do much damage sitting on the ground. But if you take that bowling ball and you raise it up high, now it has more potential energy. Because think about it, if you dropped it now and it landed on your foot, it would really hurt. You can also change the condition of the object, and this is just meaning you can make it bigger or smaller. So if I were to drop a ping pong ball on your foot, you probably wouldn't even notice. But if I were to change that to a bowling ball, its condition change made it bigger, more massive, and then I dropped it on your foot, you would probably notice that. So anything that's moving has what we call kinetic energy. But think about all the things that are moving all the time without us having to push them around, like wind and water. This is how we harness energy from the earth. We have wind energy that spins wind turbines. The wind's blowing all the time. And we have water that we can generate electricity from as well, because as the water rains on top of a mountain or uphill, eventually gravity pulls it downhill, and we can harness that energy and make electricity. When an object that has potential energy begins to move, think of a roller coaster at the very top of a hill. The higher it goes, the more potential energy it has. When it's sitting still, it's not moving, it has potential energy. It has the most potential energy it could have. But as it begins to go down the hill, it changes potential energy into kinetic energy. Now, the more potential energy an object has, the more kinetic energy it will have. But when the object, the roller coaster, reaches the bottom of the hill, it has no more potential energy because it's at the bottom. But it has the most kinetic energy because all that potential was changed into kinetic, the energy of motion. So as a roller coaster goes up and down a hill, it changes from having lots of potential energy to having very little potential energy. And the opposite is true for kinetic. At the top, when it's sitting still, it has no kinetic energy. But at the bottom, when it's moving as fast as it's going to go, it has a lot of kinetic energy. So things that are moving like wind or water or roller coasters or bowling balls, they all have kinetic energy. And we can increase that by changing their position, raising them to the top of a hill, or changing their condition by maybe making them bigger.